Welcome to At the Heart. Today I want to talk about 4 fundamentals in marriage. Something that we can get caught up with is looking at marriage in the way that maybe the world sees it, seeing things played out in movies and maybe in the neighborhood that we live in, the town, the city, where we live. But we've got to take a look at what God's plan for marriage is, because that's the first thing, is that God is the author of marriage. I heard it said that since He is the author, therefore He has rights to it. He has the rights to marriage. And one of the problems that we can have in our relationship is that we try to create marriage or make marriage to be something that it's not, something that it was never intended to be. And so knowing that God is the author, that would kind of help us put in perspective of if God authored it, if He designed it, then maybe He has something to say about it. And one of the things He says, and this is the second point, is that God is the source of the love and the life that is meant to be lived out in marriage. That He is the one that we can tap into, that we can draw strength from. Just did a previous At the Heart episode about different ways that we can turn to our Lord and find His grace. So I encourage you to watch that. But knowing that He is the source of our love together, that He is the one that's going to nourish our relationship with one another. I've heard said, St. Bernard said, not to become a channel of God's grace, but a reservoir. A reservoir is filled, and in that abundance it's able to pour out the graces and love to the people around. If in marriage we're not meant to be channels where we become dried up, we exhaust ourselves, but allow God's love and mercy to really pour into us. So we really need to be tapped in. We need to be plugged in. We need to be filled with His love and His graces, so that therefore we can carry out the mission of what marriage is. The third thing is that God is the foundation of marriage, that He is the rock. He is what we should be building our house on. In Matthew's Gospel, chapter 7, talks about everyone who listens to these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on rock. When the winds came and buffeted the house, it didn't collapse. Why? Because it had been set solidly on rock. And He said, everyone who listens to these words of mine but does not act on them will be like a fool who built his house on sand. And when the storms come, which they always do in life, the house falls and completely will be ruined. So understanding that God is the author, He's the source, the foundation, but also to realizing that what is the mission in marriage, that heaven is the goal. If we can kind of remind ourselves that what is the purpose of our relationship together? What is this all about? And yes, I think love is obviously key in that, but if love, a proper definition of love is to will the good of the other, it would mean that the ultimate good in someone's life is to get to heaven. So the mission of marriage, what marriage is all about, raising our children, the things that we do day in and day out, loving our spouse, is about loving each other to heaven, help leading the other to heaven. And so the question is that in our relationship is, number one, have we recognized the author of our relationship? Have we recognized the author of our marriage? Number two, have we been diving into that source, tapping into those graces? Have we allowing God's love to penetrate into our homes and penetrate into our lives? And have we been building our house on that rock of God by not only listening to what He wants us to do, but actually doing it, carrying out the will? And one specific mission that we've been given in marriage is to lead each other to heaven, and how we've been doing that. And to kind of take this time to prayer and ponder those things in prayer, not to sit back and beat ourselves up about maybe how we're falling and to shame ourselves, but no, to inspire us, to encourage us to strive even closer and say, okay, God, maybe I have been off the mark. Maybe I've been kind of doing it my way in some of those areas. Well, how can I go deeper? First, I need to say I'm sorry and strive to understand more of what is God asking me to do and to live it out. God bless.